Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Kids Media Club podcast. I'm Andy Williams. Joe, have you had your fruit salad this morning?
I have. What a great clue. I'm trying to think of something I can wheedle in to give a hint. Maybe it's just the colour of my sweatshirt today. Emily, come on, before I burst with excitement, tell us who we've got on the podcast today.
Well, an idea for a guest came about and I put it into our WhatsApp group and the answer was immediately yes to the Wiggles. It's great to have you, Luke and Anthony. Thank you for joining the Kids Media Club podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here, guys.
Thank you so much. Like, such a legendary kids IP that's been going for, I'm not going to get into how long, but could we just kick off with the start of the process? Take us back. Like, where did the idea for the Wiggles come about?
Yeah, well, I was doing early childhood teaching and learning how to be an early childhood teacher, which I graduated, but at Macquarie University in Sydney. And at that time, there was, in the 110 years the college had been going, there was only 3 men who had graduated. And so it was really amazing. It was such a cultural shift to be men in early childhood and men in early childhood education, which we became. So it was funny. Murray was there with me and Greg, and we kind of banded together because we were severely outnumbered. There was 150 women and 3 men in our year, and it was great. Actually, I was in the army in Australia. I joined the regular army, and I got out of the army and went from the world of men to the world of women, which was fantastic. It was a different outlook on life, and I just absolutely loved the philosophy behind the Macquarie University Institute of Early Childhood, which was all about empowering children. And it was so positive, not curriculum-based. It was based on the child's, needs and interests. And that's how the Wiggles started. I had an idea to do a music project. Coincidentally, Murray played guitar as well as I did. And Greg had this voice, a velvet, beautiful voice that was just perfect for children's music. And we used to jam in the music room at the Institute, and I had an idea to do this project and take it to the ABC, which is, of course, like the BBC. Mm-hmm. Murray and I wrote this thesis behind why we thought it was, appropriate for children, because we had the background, the knowledge.
Yeah.
What was funny, though, the lady who signed us to ABC, it was cassettes and LPs at that time, she said, look, I'll be honest with you, you'll be lucky if you sell 300 copies, but it doesn't matter, does it? And I said, no, it doesn't matter. We just like to have it out. That's great. So that's how it started.
Wow.
Interested, given what you said all those years ago back at Macquarie in the early 90s, clearly you were already thinking about communication. I mean, that would have been a big part of your degree, right? Communication with kids. What made you think about how you could get across educational concepts with music? Where did the spark come from that really was the inception of the Wiggles?
Oh, well, that was, again, going back to what we learned at university. Zoltan Kodály, the great music educator, he said, if you marry music with actions, children will own that music. They'll own it. So, if you think of the Wiggles, we always had actions. We still do. Hot potato, children can do that. Rockabye Your Bear, everybody clap, everybody sing. And we also learned at university that there was, a song for a child can be a singing song. So if it's a singing song, you only have a few notes in it in their vocal range. If it's a story song, you can put a lot of complex melodies. It's just about listening to the story. There are listening songs. There's dancing songs for dancing, and there's songs to inspire play. So children will learn through music. Just naturally they'll learn. But of course, you've got to also, you can encourage them. Like when I was teaching, I used to have headphones with music and a little easel where they could paint away to the sounds of, Beethoven or someone like that.
I love that idea of the actions. I feel like you were doing TikTok before TikTok was TikTok.
It's so true.
And then, so how did the other elements of the show come around? The outfits and building it out into being a real, because music is obviously very difficult to do, but to build it out into something that is even bigger, it's a brand, I might say, or an IP. You know what I mean? How did that come about, or was it just organic?
Well, we had an ethos, which we still have, and that is to be child-centred. So to understand the child's developmental stages.
Mm-hmm.
and talk to them in a language they understand, in a world that they love, or they want to learn about. That's been our ethos. So that goes across to, if we have merchandise, hopefully it's inspiring children to do something that's not just one use and throw it away, or encourages them or challenges them. With food, we've shied away from confectionery. There's things that have been true to the Wiggles, and we've kept all the way. But I'll let Luke talk about. He's our businessman. Yeah, what does it mean for you, Luke, when you hear what we're all about?
Yeah, I think the colours, it's such a iconic, the 4 colours, nice and simple and stuff, and I think that's certainly where the sort of Wiggles brand and that has built. And then I think it it's obviously, as it's grown, it has grown organically to come through. And then the Wiggles have been, I'd say, very disciplined around what they do, and there's been investment in the long term in terms of how we grow the business and what they do in terms of, like Anthony mentioned, across different types of things with food, and then staying very true to who the Wiggles are from a brand point of view. So there's been consistency for the 30 odd years they've been there. The skivvies have they've evolved slightly. We've got new ones with our country album coming up with tassels and things like that, but they're instantly recognisable as the Wiggles. We've got some glitter on and stuff. There's been little slight evolutions, but, at first glance, they're the Wiggles. So that consistency around brand, things like that.
Was that something that was a conscious decision, or was it just something that was always there? You were laser focused on what the core was. I'm interested to know, because there have been those evolutions, but to your point, they've been slight and they've been very considered. You introduced characters that kids could gravitate towards. Captain's Feathersword was a favourite of mine. But when you made those decisions, how did you go through that process of thinking, okay, we need to do this, but we don't want it to take away from what the heart of the Wiggles is about?
Yeah, that's a great one. I distinctly remember when we started, I thought about, children love pirates, especially boys love pirates. We need a pirate, but true to our philosophy, it can't have swords. But the scheme of a pirate is they do have swords. Yeah. So we made a feather sword, which he only tickles people with. Mm-hmm. So he's still true to what a pirate is. The other one was the dinosaurs. Children love dinosaurs. And again, going from the love of what the interest children have, I think dinosaurs are incredible for children, because when they get a little bit older, they realise that they did exist, but there's still something special and fantasy about them as well. So it was great. We had a Dorothy, and the funny thing was Dorothy came out about the same time the original Jurassic Park came out, and Dorothy was out with her rose eating, and I went and saw Jurassic Park thinking it's going to be like Dorothy the dinosaur, and I was so scared. So I'm glad we went down that path with Dorothy.
Oh, now I need Dorothy to feature in a cameo in an upcoming Jurassic Park movie. Let's manifest that for a moment.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. One of the things I'm really struck by is how important the teaching and the learning is in the evolution of all of the songs. Do you think that's been the kind of the bedrock, your kind of background in terms of preschool teaching, and that kind of feeding into the work that you guys do?
Absolutely. When I was teaching, I used to sing songs, make up songs on the spot to inspire the children. There was one time, let's clean up the room, clean it up, crawling. And that became a Wiggle song later, Here Comes a Bear, because I remembered it at the time. I remember it was crawling around the floor, picking up the, and children love that. So to me, music, art, the arts are just such an integral part of a child's creative development.
Amazing. And the live performances are such a kind of key part of the Wiggles. It almost feels like there's an extension from that classroom relationship with the kids to then even a live show with kind of hundreds and thousands of people. Do you feel that kind of feedback and response is kind of important in terms of the evolution of the Wiggles and how you kind of develop songs?
Absolutely. And the Wiggles shows is not a taped show. We play the music, and what that means is it can take a real left turn when a child in the audience says something spontaneously. And for me, that means after 34 years now, I never know what's going to happen at the show, and it keeps it so interesting for all of us. We've had some funny comments one time in Australia. We were playing up in North Queensland, and this was the original Wiggles, and in Cairns, and they didn't have air conditioning. They only had those big fans.
Right.
We had cotton skivvies on, and we were sweating so much. And this little boy put his hand up, and I said, "Oh, what's your name?" And he told me his name. I said, "So, what would you like to say?" And he said, "Murray's melting." That just broke us up. But you don't get that if you're not talking to the audience, and the management skills of a classroom are exactly the same as a big, 6,000, 7,000 seater, where we only talk to the child. We don't talk to boys and girls. We never say boys and girls. We say you or everyone. So they're part of the group, or we talk to the individual child. And I think that's really made a child in the audience feel like we're talking to them. And that's straight out of preschool teaching.
Amazing.
The thing that's I like, I'm sorry to get so boring and corporate about it, but like what is so impressive is like how you've managed to expand the brand onto all new platforms. I was just like, I had a moment there when we started the chat, and I was like, are these guys on TikTok? And I'm like, so again, I wanted to check, and you're on there. You nearly have a million followers, lads. And then also when you're talking about the music element, obviously is so native to YouTube, and I know you guys are doing like guts of 100 million views there as well. So like, how have you kind of found those new platforms have flowed with, your ethos around, doing right by the child and all that kind of stuff? And how have you found a way to get onto those platforms in a way that works for the IP, but also that really works for, the audience?
I'll let Luke answer, but I'll just say, for me, with the TikTok, we've got 8 Wiggles now, and they grew up with the Wiggles, and the TikTok audience grew up with the Wiggles. And now in Australia, we are the most streamed act in Australia, even over Kid Leroy. And I'll let Luke tell you about it, but to me, it's because they grew up with the Wiggles, and it's a great memory for them, and they relive it. But we're coming out with new things that,
to get through. I think for us, it's we're just following the audience, right? It's not we're not necessarily dictating where we go. It's like we're our audience, and we know that when we're doing things for YouTube or whatever, we're talking to children, and that when we're on TikTok, we're talking to parents.
Yeah.
We've got a conscious decision around how we make content and understanding who we're talking to, and that core of the Wiggles, and it's probably the brand, the IP is broader than just a children's group per se, in terms of, for 30 odd years, those children that were 5 years old 30 years ago are now 35 and got their children themselves, etc. We're sort of talking to multiple groups and that as we come through. So it's very much, horses for courses in terms of what sort of content do we make, understanding who we're talking about. And the core of the Wiggles is education, but is also just fun. Like the Wiggles are fun, and so if the Wiggles are having fun, it's fun. It's the audience picks it up, and that's kind of underlying in everything that the Wiggles does. Is just how do we have fun? How do we brighten? Parenting is tough, so parenting young children is tough. So everyone's nodding. Yeah, right.
We've all got the T-shirt.
Yeah. So, if we can brighten someone's day through a TikTok or an Instagram post and things like that, then it's great. That's kind of what we do, helping parents.
It's a wonderful, but it is a rare thing these days, given the amount of content and new IP that is out there, to be at the point where you can have a relationship with the parents who you had a relationship when they were kids, and in turn then pass it on. And using these platforms, I agree with you. I think a lot of today's parents of preschoolers look to TikTok for lots of not just entertainment, but parenting advice. We've talked about it in the past.
Yeah.
A great resource certainly for me, and I know for you, Emily. But that only comes when you've got scale, and you've also got, you've been around for 30 odd years. So when did you realize you were a phenomenon?
I will also say on top of that though, Joe, like a lot of brands will just fumble the ball and like endlessly, I can't be on TikTok. It's like, and it shouldn't be as refreshing as it is to hear you guys be like, oh, we just make fun videos. Like, I mean, if they're like, we're going to be talking to the parents there, like, it just needs to be funny. Like, and obviously we want to do a bit of good. Like, you know, that is more refreshing than it should be, because that should be the general idea. But it is kind of exceptional.
The benefits of a privately owned company is,
well, yeah.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Hashtag corporate life.
As we've got set up, as we're sitting at the moment, we're in the Wiggles podcast studio.
Yeah.
We've got our greens room studio next door, the sound studio.
Yeah.
We've got the Wiggles house out the back. Post-production's all in-house. So this was saying about the Wiggles, they invested in all this early on. So we've got it all in one spot, so we can move fast and produce lots of content. Creatively, we sit with Anthony, and so we can make fast decisions and trial and error. But may I say, I'm creative director of so much stuff. But when you go to TikTok, I stay right out of that because I have no idea. John, big strong John, he's got a real big following. Johnny Pierce, he won Australia's Got Talent.
Yeah,
dancing, and he became a Wiggle, John Pierce. He was at the pizza shop. He lived 2 streets away from me and kept seeing him and going, John, we got to talk. Anyway, he left his Justice Crew, which is his group, and he became a Wiggle. And all of a sudden, like in America, he's become this big because of his TikToks, and he's got 1 million people following him. Probably more than that. Yeah. All we do is try to tell him to keep his shirt on as much as he can. I don't even look at them.
That's the only note. That's the only note.
I don't know if he does or not, but he.
Oh, that's good. So yeah, but back to Joe's question. I kind of took over there, but so when did you guys realize that this was a real phenomenon that was kind of like that could go global?
Well, what was funny, we went over to America and we got signed by this channel. I don't even think it's still going, Fox Family Channel, and it was and we did a couple of shows there, and we played for 2 months a residency at what's Water? It's not Waterworld, the one with the where they have the whale there.
Oh, SeaWorld.
SeaWorld. We had a residency at SeaWorld for 2 months, and we were playing at the Boogie Bump Theatre. Nobody knew who we were, and we went back to Australia and we went, well, what are we going to do? Anyway, unbeknownst to us, because again, this is before the internet things, the Disney Channel took our show from Fox and put it on Disney 4 times a day. And we got a call to come over to America to come and play a few shows. This promoter wanted to, so we thought, what's going on? And when we knew we'd hit, we went through customs. First, the customs guys recognised us, and I went to Murray. Things have changed, mate. Things have changed. And what they didn't recognise us because we were wanted or anything. They just had seen the Wiggles on television. I'm going to say that.
Amazing. And how long was that from the kind of the start of the Wiggles to that point? How many years did it sort of take for you to feel like it had changed and you'd hit the big time really with it?
Well, in Australia, it again, we had no airplay, but with what they call out here the bush telegraph, where people just talk to each other, and we played all these shows, and we did it for two or 3 years. We self-funded our own TV show, but it was probably 3 years, and we went to America, and then in 2000 it just started taking off, and Madison Square Garden, we played it. It was incredible,
amazing.
And then that's the thing, you guys don't rest on that, right? Like there's still new stuff coming through. I know there was like an animated series that's been announced, towards the end of last year. Like you're still trying to find, new formats. Like how do you make a decision on that? How do you kind of go, now's the right time for this?
Again, if I know what we're doing, I'll jump in. But Luke's been very good as a business strategy, saying, well, here's what we've got to, concentrate on. That includes YouTube, which we didn't even think of YouTube. We were way behind the ball on YouTube. We all thought it was TV. We were still,
getting through. To sort of answer that, I think partly it's, Anthony's enthusiasm for new music and content. Like it's, he's well within his rights just to sit back and go, job done, I'm through. But, He loves it. He's in every day. He works probably harder than anyone on what's next and that. So we've sort of come in and looking at, always looking for what's new and what we can do and new ideas and new fun things to do. So, we kind of think that, we're the most exciting new IP around that just happens to be 30 odd years old. So we're always looking at, from the content that we do to the way we film, our licensing. So we've redone all of our licensing and just got a whole new look and just reimagine what the Wiggles can be. So, constantly, that constant evolution, that curiosity around what else the Wiggles can do and where we could take the Wiggles brand musically and all that kind of thing. So,
as a creative person and as a storyteller, Anthony, I'm interested, the opportunity to create a podcast or an animation. Does that still get you excited? Or is it something you're like, okay, I've got to learn about podcasting now? How do you go about kind of going, okay, we're going to try and articulate the Wiggles as animated characters? Does that get you excited? Are you at the core of all of that development?
Well, not podcasts. That's another one. I that's really not my strength. But if we were doing animation, if we're doing new TV series, we actually, I directed a lot of TV series. And then last series we did, I said to we've got a fellow here working who's absolutely brilliant. I said to Nick, I think it needs fresh blood, Nick, if you can do it. And he wrote it. And I just look over it now and it's brought this new look to the Wiggles. And, I'm really happy. That gets me going. I really enjoyed someone else doing it, but me looking over it, being part of it too. But the music side of things, I still love that. I love going in the studio. And I don't know if you've seen, we've got this character called the Tree of Wisdom. And he has become this viral TikTok thing. What do you call it?
Social media. He's sensation. So I think, Khloe Kardashian reposted his videos 3 or 4 times over the Christmas break.
Very nice.
100 million plus views. He's a classic.
So at the moment we've got this amazing country album coming out with Dolly Parton, Lainey Wilson,
Jackson Dean, Morgan Evans, a whole heap of
all these incredible people, and that's been really our focus, and we're having so much fun with it. But in the meantime, I'm here every day with the Tree of Wisdom, doing this dance album, and it's going to be called Bush Doof. Now, in Australia, they have these Bush Doof where they go into the bush and they have dance parties. Anyway, so the Tree of Wisdom, we're doing this album, and I feel like it's going to be I think it's going to strike a chord with everybody, even in the UK.
I want some of what you are having for your breakfast. This is a level of passion and excitement and enthusiasm that I love.
This is why I'm in Kids TV, so I can have conversations that go, okay, so imagine a dance album with the Tree of Wisdom. Like these types of conversations.
With a feather for a sword.
Yeah. This is why I'm into it.
Yeah, we had a lot of success with the album called The Rave of Innocence, where we had Dorothy as the DJ. So we remixed all the Wiggles tracks and put it into a thing. So I think, we're up to about 20 million streams on Spotify.
Stop downloading it on Spotify, wow. Joe. We're in the middle of a recording. I can see you.
It's cut
already doing it.
It's cut across. Children love it. It's Wiggle songs, but it's got beat and energy, like Anthony it's talked about earlier. It's like, you can get up and dance. But then, parents love it as well. It's that, I don't know how many videos we had across social of, mums and dads and their children, cutting some shapes on the lounge room floor or on the way to school and all that kind of thing. So it's just another element of music that we think, the whole toddler techno piece is coming out. We're building some shows around it and just people love it and it's fun. So we're going to try and do more of it.
It's really refreshing, isn't it? And again, benefits of a privately owned company when you can afford not to take yourself too seriously, because we do have a generation of parents who did grow up with meme culture. They like a little bit of absurdity, of tongue-in-cheek, of, things that maybe the bigger corporates would shy away from. But actually, that's a connection. And you spoke about connection in the live shows. And now we have so many more tech platforms and ways to create content than ever. But actually, that's made creating connection quite hard. So anything that you can do that creates that connection. And like you said, crazy dancing with your kids. We all remember those kind of moments where we just all went crazy. So if you can spark that, I think that's really great.
But it's also that thing of like the music needs to just be good, and it needs to be the type of
Mhm.
music that a parent would listen to. It doesn't always have to be, ding a ling a ling, like, basic bitch kids music.
Yeah,
Like it can be
yeah,
it
I,
can be
I,
good,
I totally, and that's the same with children's literature. If there's a great book like in my day was Where the Wild Things Are, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Peter's Chair, or like you love reading
Mm.
those with your children because they're
Mm.
quality, and that's
Mm.
what I feel with our music. I've always wanted to be as accessible and enjoyed by parents as much as they can.
Mm.
When we have a new engineer come into the Wiggles, they put the vocals way up high, thinking that's what you do with children's music. And I always say the voice is just another instrument. We want the child to hear the drums, the guitars,
yeah,
Mhm.
so we think about it like I think about the music. The content, the subject is children's.
Mm.
They can understand it, but the music is accessible by adults too. It's, what they're saying now for co-viewing, it's
Yeah.
co-listening
Yeah.
to.
yeah. And I think that really comes across, that you can tell that it's made by musicians, people that are kind of understand and enjoy the music rather
Mm.
than it just being a gimmick. And I think we can overthink the social media stuff a bit sometimes, because I think what you guys do incredibly well is you just understand that relationship with the audience. So it could be in a live setting to a live audience, or it could be on TV, or it could be on TikTok. It's all the same. It's just a different communication platform. And I think you guys really understand that, and it
Mm.
comes across. It's great.
And I think also what Luke was saying, I think I understand the preschool audience, and the TikTok audience is an older audience, and I don't understand them. But Johnny and, Lucia and Sahai, that's their generation and they understand it. So it's good to know. I think that's something with when early childhood bands start out, entertainers, first thing they've got to say is, what age group is this for? And
Mm.
because some of them don't, some of them just go, okay, I think this is going to be good for, and they don't even, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned about the Kardashians earlier. Are there any other celebrity fans of the Wiggles that you could mention?
Yeah, there's lots. I know that when was it Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman were promoting the Wolverine. It was in the UK somewhere where they got in an argument about the Wiggles. I think Ryan Reynolds was going to talk about it. So there's a lot, Stephen Colbert, and it's amazing when you're surprised. I think Michelle Obama mentioned the Wiggles, and we're constantly surprised around when the Wiggles pop up, where people talk about them or people follow them. So
Well, Hugh Jackman is a funny one because Captain Feathersword, Paul Paddock, went to university. It was called WAPA in Perth, which is Western Australian Performing Arts, and they're at the same uni together, the same class together. And for years, Paddy used to go. We call him Paddy. Paddy used to go. Me and you. There's all these stories about, and we went, "There's no way, mate." Anyway, we're at this thing in LA called G'day LA. It was an Australian showcase, and Hugh Jackman raced over to give Paddy a big hug, and I went, "Okay, fair enough. All right, mate."
Checks out.
Okay. Yeah. So that's great. Shaquille O'Neal came to our show in Miami quite a few times. The last time he came, he came in a red skivvy, and
Wow.
he asked, his manager came side stage and said, "This is at where the Miami Heat play." So his manager came side stage and said, "Shaquille wants on." Who refuses that?
Yeah.
So Shaquille O'Neal came on and he did Hot Potato with us, playing Murray's guitar. And ESPN ran a story that night because Shaquille was off injured from the Miami Heat. And the story was, how injured can he be if he gets up with the Wiggles? So there's some funny stories.
That's
I
amazing.
love that. Talking about other Australian homegrown success, I mean, we speak about Bluey a lot. Bluey having taken the world of kids media by storm in the last couple of years. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously it's great. Is there something unique about how you Aussies create stories for preschoolers, do you think?
Again, Bluey came out of a little company, a little studio in Queensland. And I know Joe, who does the music, and it's such a small industry here. They just stuck to what they did well, and they knew that it was good, and it's just, I think it's just been amazing and incredibly inspirational. I went up to all the guys when they won an award the other day in Australia and just shook their hands. I'm so proud of them. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, not like I think, the greatest thing about Australia is it's a million miles from anywhere, and the worst thing about Australia is it's a million miles from anywhere. There's a bit of isolation. We're a long way from the corporate world in terms of the entertainment. So there's that. I think that little bit of you kind of do whatever you want. There's kind of not many people around to tell you that's not going to work or that's not going to get through. So certainly, Bluey's are amazing success.
Yeah, and I think there is in that, and I kind of say self-reflecting is a little bit. I've spoken with people about this in the past few months. Is like exportable Australianness. Like I would definitely say, I see some IP come through this. There's good examples of exportable Irishness. And there's Irishness I see that I'm like, oh my God, this is like too paddy whackery, like this needs. And then there's unimportable Irishness, I would say, like Mrs. Brown's Boys, like y'all seem to like that, like no one here likes it, like it's just, that is like, it's not a thing for us, but it's trying to get that right, that like you, and exportable Britishness, like Harry Potter, like Paddington, that kind of thing are such good examples of that. But it's like, I don't know, maybe it's the strength of the storytelling that sits underneath it, that it's not just trying to flog like Australianness. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. There's kind of a subtlety to it that I don't think people always get right.
Yeah. When we first went to America, they asked us if they could dub us.
Yeah.
And we said, no, it won't be the same. They put out a glossary of terms. And Australia's changed a lot, like everywhere. There's not as many. But when we started 30 years ago, we really did say things that you need to probably, but like Ireland and England and Scotland and Wales, you guys have all got sayings that don't go over. So we had, when the Wiggles first started in America, they had this glossary of terms that went out with all the press releases of what we are saying, what we mean. Even skivvies means underwear over there. So, and I remember when we played America, and there was this lady, and she I said, "Could I have a nurse?" And over there, that means breastfeed, and in Australia, that means like go like that, right? And she was horrified. And the other one with nappies. You guys say nappies, right? I met some triplets at a show, and I said, "Oh, you must go through a lot of nappies." And she went, "Oh, they're sleeping all the time."
Yeah.
So I knew there is a real language thing, not as much these days, but still.
Yeah,
that's
definitely part of the charm, though. Definitely.
Yeah, I think people enjoy that part of it. I think sometimes we try and kind of flatten out all of the distinctiveness and airbrush it so everything looks the same. Whereas Peppa Pig I was working at Nickelodeon at the time that Peppa Pig was around, and in the States they dubbed it into American English, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so then they brought it back with the English one, and then it was a hit. So I think the audience kind of responds to it feeling authentic.
What about Thomas the Tank? Did they do that with Thomas as well?
Oh yeah, they couldn't call him the Fat Controller either, don't they? He's like, my husband, when he gets that dub on because on Netflix you can have one or the other, and he's just like, no, we need to it's got a British dub. It's quite offensive to the British, that dub, I think.
But I feel Australian humour and Irish and English and Scottish and Welsh is very similar. We take the out of each other and out of ourselves. So
I think Australia probably sits between that. Australians are more English than the Americans, but Australians are more American than the English. We probably sit somewhere in the middle. So that could help with the translation as well.
Yeah, definitely. And is there anything else you're seeing in the realms of kids TV that you're excited about, that you think is like an interesting direction that folks are taking?
Now, when my children were, I watched all of it, so I could talk in the past about some of the great shows, if that's okay. I loved Balamory.
Yes, Miss Hooley.
Yeah, I've got a funny story about that if I've got time.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's always time for a funny story in the Kids Media Club podcast.
It's a crazy story. So I was following when Twitter was on, I was on Twitter, but not anymore, but I was on Twitter, and I was following Greg Hempel, who is a Scottish comedy writer who wrote that big comedy show in Scotland. But I was following him, and he put up this thing, who do you have a secret crush on in Scotland? Like, he wrote that to everyone, right? And I didn't know. I just wrote, absolutely Miss Hooley, which I did. I had a crush on Miss Hooley. Anyway, he wrote, well, that's great because that's my wife. Anyway, when we went to Scotland, Julie and Greg, we've become best mates, and we still laugh. But Miss Hooley was the best. There was a show. Do you remember a show called Boo? Boo?
Yeah.
Where's Boo?
Yeah.
That was a great show.
Hide and seek. Yeah, great show.
In the Wiggles, Katarina's just had twins. Johnny's just had a baby. Lockie has twins, and they all come in and talk about the latest shows. But if you don't have the children, I don't really watch it much anymore. But do you?
Yeah, a little bit. I think we're fairly internally focused on what we're doing. So for us, some of the new stuff is this sort of toddler techno piece is kind of we're sort of interested in sort of expanding in terms of new, and we think there's kind of a lot there to come through. And I think we'll see a lot of old shows redone. I think a lot of old IP will sort of come back and people play it safe. Just with the nature of the industry at the moment is kind of what we're seeing.
Mm. I think there's a newfound appreciation, given that the ability to make and distribute content has never been so easy. There's a newfound appreciation for that genuine, good storytelling. And a lot of that does come with those old IP that can find a new audience and can find new ways to reach them on platforms like YouTube. And I think I think we'll see that. I mean, just going back to what you said, Anthony, what's the one show that you, if you hadn't have made the Wiggles, you would have made, that you watched and admired? Would it have been Boo or something else?
No, I'm sure I know you have the same show in England, and that is Play School. I tried out for Play School. I auditioned for Play School when I first became a teacher, and I got called back, and then my voice, it's not great. I play the music and my pitch wasn't good enough. So I went away and went, I've got to do something myself. But Play School, I think, is just so fantastic. It's early childhood based, developmental based, and music, and they're brilliant actors on board. And it actually really looks at its audience and respects its audience. So I love Play School. I think that's the best one ever.
That's great.
Superb. I love that message to finish up, is respecting your audience. I think that really comes through from what you've both said and everything that you've done in those 30 odd years you've been making.
We said we weren't going to say how long it was, Joe.
Anthony said it earlier.
Yeah, I think we've all said it.
It's that respect, and I think that's really lovely.
But could I ask one question before we finish? Emily, behind you is a man looking at us all. Who is that man?
It's Hans Gruber from Die Hard.
Yeah. That's great.
It's our co-host Hans. Yeah. He's our engineer, really, in the background. Awesome.
That's great.
It's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Made my Tuesday. It's going to be difficult to top the rest of today.
Lovely.
Do the wrap up, Andy.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys. And thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in. It's time for us to get our Wiggles on, and please like and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and follow us on TikTok. Hope to see you at the next episode.